Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our final projects Q&A session. I'm happy to have you here. If you have any friends you think might be interested in the projects Q&A or any of our projects in general, please forward them this link. I'm sure they would love to hear about our projects and be able to ask questions about them. So yeah, this is our last and final session, but don't worry. There will be a session that is recorded at this link, seds.ca/projqa. So if you aren't able to make it or your friends aren't able to make it, definitely direct them to that link and you can watch a recorded session. Okay, so let's get started. First, a tiny bit about who SEDS-Canada is. We're a student-run nonprofit organization whose mission is to strengthen Canada's future in space. And we do this by providing post-secondary students with unique research programs, professional development opportunities, and projects in all sectors of the Canadian space sector, so governmental, industrial, and academic sectors. So we're Canada's only student-run nonprofit, and we work across the country to sort of empower students to join the future Canadian space workforce. We're a member-based organization with members from almost every province and territory, but tell your friends if your territory or province is listed on the screen here. And what we do is sort of create a platform for students to advance Canada's space sector while learning valuable skills for your future careers. So a little bit about how this project's Q&A is going to work. We're going to go through each project separately, a little bit of an overview, and then we'll break for questions after each project. But feel free to ask questions about sort of anything during those question breaks. And if you ever have any questions, definitely toss them in the chat. So we're actually live streaming to both YouTube and Facebook right now. But whichever platform you're on, just toss the questions in the chat. And we have someone monitoring for questions that will post those to us. So awesome. Let's get it started. We're going to start with the Canadian Reduced Gravity Experiment Design Challenge, and this will be presented by Pat.
All right, great. Thanks, Kristen. So yeah, my name's Patrick. I'm the Assistant Project Manager for the CAN-RGX, and I'm just going to take this opportunity now to tell you guys a little bit about the competition. So the Canadian Reduced Gravity Experiment, or CAN-RGX, is a design challenge. It's a competition for Canadian post-secondary students all across the country. And what we invite them to do is design a small scientific experiment which flies aboard the National Research Council's Falcon 20, which is a commercial jet which has been modified for microgravity flight, and so they can perform research on it. So in addition to the NRC, we're also partnered with the Canadian Space Agency, and we have a couple of subject matter experts who help us from the University of Toronto and MIT to help students try out the microgravity research environment. So for those of you who might not know, to get the simulated microgravity experience, the plane flies in this parabolic arc. So in order to generate this, your plane kind of pitches up very rapidly. And at this point, not only does the crew experience microgravity, but during this pitching up, they experience hypergravity. So between 1.8 and 2 Gs compared to what you would feel typically on Earth. And then as we reach the top of the arc, the plane enters a free fall where the microgravity is really experienced. And here is where the crew experiences about 20 seconds of this reduced gravity experience, which I'm going to show a video of just in a moment. And then depending on the experiment and what's specifically being run, the crew might experience between 5 to 7 consecutive parabolas if the research will accept that. So to give you really a good idea of what it feels like on the plane, we've prepared a short video which is coming up, and in the top section we'll see 2 views, one from the cockpit and one from the cabin itself. So in the top, from the pilot's view, we can see that horizon line really creeping up to that 45-degree angle as the plane is pitching up, and in the back, or the bottom view, you can see all the crew getting prepared for the microgravity. In the top view, you can actually see a couple of erasers which are hanging there, and they start to float just as we enter microgravity right now. And that's a way for the pilots to gauge how they're doing and how they're keeping straight. And then you can also see in the bottom the clipboard floating around, and you'll see Jared's camera jumping up in a second. So this is really a very exciting part of the experiments, and something that we really enjoy seeing, how excited everyone gets, but it's quite an experience. So now that you kind of have an idea of what 20 seconds of microgravity looks like, I'm going to finish off telling you a little bit more about the project. So the CAN-RGX is really the only competition of its kind in Canada. And not only is this such a unique experience, but it's unique for other reasons, that your team will be allowed to participate in a full engineering design cycle, from the very beginning of concept designs all the way to flying the experiments, collecting and processing the data. Your team will experience very, very valuable experience in project management, learning about microgravity sciences, and you'll make a lot of connections with people from the NRC, the CSA, and other industry professionals. So most importantly, though, the science is meaningful, and many students have even had the opportunity to publish their work, as well as being able to present and communicate your findings. It's an excellent experience to get get a little bit of taste of what industrial research looks like. And so to get an idea of the timeline, we're open right now for proposals. So if you have a team and you're excited about what you've just seen, then go out and write a proposal and try and get them submitted. We've got just about a month left before proposals are due on November 15th. And then at the end of November, we're going to select 2 teams who will be able to fly in the Falcon 20. After that, after the teams are selected, that's when the real kind of work begins, and you'll begin designing your experiments and running through those iterations. And this is where our subject matter experts from the CSA, the NRC, will be helping you to improve your experiments and iterate the design as we move through the next preliminary design review and critical design review in the July of 2021. And then finally, you'll be prepared for your final flight campaign, which is going to be occurring in the start to middle of August in 2021, excuse me. So everything you need to apply can be found on the SEDS website, seds.ca/CAN-RGX. And here you'll find the student handbook, which has all the instructions for how to apply. It also includes a short form to express your interest in the CAN-RGX if you'd like to request some more information, and gives you some instructions for submitting the proposals, as well as a couple of examples of experiments, and gives a quick recap of different areas of research for microgravity if you're looking for a little bit of inspiration. And now at this point, I think I'm ready to open up for questions. If anything jumps up in the chats or you are excited about something, please let us know and we will get back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. Like you said, if you have any questions, please fire them up in the chat. Pat, do you want to talk a bit about the experiment that you flew on the Falcon 20, just while people are thinking of questions?
Yes, so I'm actually an alumni of the competition. And when I was running my experiments, it was about fluid dynamics, which is a topic that's often explored in microgravity research. And what we were looking at was the construction of a kind of like a pumping system. So in order to control the fluids in microgravity, you can use things that, well, traditionally gravity dominates a lot of the forces when you're on Earth, but when you're without the presence of gravity, you can control fluids with things like electric fields and magnetic fields. And my experiment was investigating how that could be possible with electric fields specifically, so that we could try and design a pump that would have no moving parts and would have a very long service life for things like extended space missions.
Awesome. Yeah, and just on that note, talking about experiments, just wanted to go back Actually, this slide is perfect. You can see sort of the size of experiments if this bar went away, but you can sort of see there's 2 pelican cases in here. There's one sort of hiding behind here and one right down over here. And so the experiments are quite large. So you can fit a lot of stuff in that pelican case and do quite meaningful experiments on the Falcon 20.
Yeah, I think those cases are about almost 2 feet, a little bit larger, 2 by 2 by 2 feet. So if you want to get, you can actually get quite a good sized experiment in there.
Yeah, and I think those details are also in the handbook. So if you need like specific details about the size of the experiment that's allowed or other requirements of the experiment, definitely head to the website and click on that student handbook, and you should find everything you need. We do have a question in the chat here. How many teams do you usually accept each year for the CAN-RGX campaign? And that's a good question. So nominally, every year we accept 4 teams to fly on the Falcon 20. But because of COVID-19 this year, we're scaling it a bit back just so we're able to support all the teams appropriately. So this year, it's kind of a play on why we call this the CAN-RGX 4.5 competition. We're sort of doing a half flight. So we're doing only 2, we're going to accept up to 2 teams this year for CAN-RGX 4.5. Okay, let's move on. And if you have any other questions, definitely toss them in the chat and we will answer them next question break. Awesome. So now the Canadian Stratospheric Balloon Experiment Design Challenge. And I'll be presenting this. I didn't introduce myself before, but my name is Kristen Cote, and I am the projects chair at SEDS-Canada. So I oversee all of these projects, and it's a really fun job. So if you're ever interested in sort of this work we do generally, please let me know. So the CAN-SBX Design Challenge. This is essentially a, like RGX, you have a sort of small experiment. It's a design challenge. So you're working through an entire engineering design cycle. And instead of going on a Falcon 20 plane for microgravity, you're looking at stratospheric science. So we're actually working with the CSA this year to fly small scientific experiments on board their brand new expandable balloon platform. So this takes payloads up to 35 kilometers. And you'll be able to do tests, atmospheric science tests, technology demonstrations, things like that. But at the same time, you have the science part, but you also will be able to learn how to operate and recover a payload mission to the stratosphere. So it's sort of a learning opportunity. The idea is that you learn how to fly these expandable balloons, and then you can take that knowledge back to your home institution and continue launching balloons if that's of interest to you. So we like to say, yeah, you launching your ideas to the edge of space. Close enough, right? This is an opportunity for you and your team, like I said, to learn how to operate the real payload mission, as well as design, assemble, and launch your experiment. And this is all with guidance from CSA experts. So like RGX, where you have a panel of SMEs, SBX as well has a panel of subject matter experts from the Canadian Space Agency that help you with the design of your experiment. You'll also, like our other design challenges, gain much experience in communication and project management. You'll build relevant connections, and again, performing meaningful science and publishing your work is something SEDS-Canada is really passionate about. So we're going to help you along the way. We're going to recommend ways to publish your work and make significant contributions to the science that you're trying to do. Like CAN-RGX, it's sort of a similar timeline for CAN-SBX. The proposals are due November 17th, so about a month away, and the teams are selected, within a week. After that, you have your big chunk of time for designing your experiment. You'll have some, short meetings with SMEs in order to do this. But the main milestone is the preliminary design review at the beginning of March. And then you have a critical design review stage where you're sort of finalizing the design of your payload and making sure sort of component level things are on track and are sort of working. After which you sort of move on to this pink bar we have here, and that's sort of for final integration and testing of your experiment, culminating in a flight campaign where you actually launch your experiment at the end of July. And this will happen in Saint-Hubert, Quebec, by near the Canadian Space Agency headquarters. So what will you fly? Here's a little example of some things that are on the current campaign for CAN-SBX. So McMaster Neodos, their high altitude balloon sector, they're flying a technology demonstration of the CubeSat. That's part of the CCP challenge. So they're flying their communication antennas and communication sort of electronics in order to test that subsystem. They may also fly their neutron radiation dosimeter, so their actual science payload, in order to test that as well in the stratosphere. So it's sort of a technology demonstration mission. We also have a team, the Western Undergraduate Balloon Team, who are looking at something that's more related to space medicine. So they're looking at how nutrient degradation in space, so how vitamins, if they're exposed to a space-like environment, if there's any degradation there. So there's a wide range in payloads that are acceptable for this type of competition, something that might be a little bit more complicated versus something that might be a little bit more simple. It's just, the only requirement is really that you have a good science or technology motivation behind your experiment. Okay. Everything you need to apply is found on our website, so SEDS.ca/CAN-SBX, or you can just Google CAN-SBX. And like RGX, you'll find here a student handbook that essentially details the entire design challenge, including sort of the size of experiments we're looking for. It also has an interest form on the webpage. RGX has this as well, so it's just a quick Google form. If you're interested in the competition, just generally, you can fill it out with sort of the idea that you're thinking of, and we can help you sort of finesse that if needed, or help you in any other way. The handbook contains instructions for submitting proposals, and the website also contains, again, a short blurb for relevant areas of research and a short FAQ that just has general things. So now we'll break for another question period. So if you do have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. So there is a question already. Are students able to recover their payload to analyze their collected data afterwards? And if so, how? And yeah, absolutely. So the balloon platform sort of ascends to the stratosphere, and then eventually it'll pop, but there'll be a parachute on board. And also sort of a GPS device. So we'll be able to see where it is once it lands and recover it. There is a couple caveats to that. So there is a parachute, but sort of, you can't really guarantee the amount of acceleration your payload will encounter when contacting the Earth again. So that might be a bit high. And so there are some, risks there. And then as well as, we're doing these payload launches in an area that you may encounter it at some point, water, like it may land on water, but we have plans to mitigate that. So including like styrofoam to help your experiment float and things like that, and waterproofing. So yeah, you do definitely have the chance to recover your payload and analyze any data that you might have on the payload, whether that be, actual data on a USB stick, or for example, like the Western UBT group, they're actually sending up, a sample, and then they'll bring that sample back down and put it into some sort of spectrometer or analyzer, and then collect their data that way. So short answer, yes. Another question, what's the altitude that balloons usually reach? So these expandable balloon platforms, I believe, are at around 35 to 40 kilometers. Yeah, okay. Another question. How many payloads will there be on one balloon? That's a good question. So with these expandable balloon platforms, each payload gets their own balloon. So, you know, it's sort of like you're designing your own mission because there's no one else. You're not piggybacking on another balloon. You're just sort of on your own balloon, and it's your mission. So that's kind of interesting as well. Awesome. Okay. So let's move on, and there'll be one final question break. So again, feel free to ask in the chat and we'll get around to that question eventually. Awesome. So now we'll move on to YSpacE, and Agustia is going to present YSpacE. Agustia, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's perfect.
Hi. So yeah, YSpacE, or Young Space Entrepreneurs Competition, is a business plan competition. It's one of its kind in Canada, and it teaches participants to go through each step of figuring out how to write a business plan. So the aim of the YSpacE competition is to empower students with the experience and confidence to target problems in the space industry and develop solutions, and then learn how to turn those ideas into profitable businesses. Yeah, so throughout the length of the competition, you will be learning a lot. You'll be learning a lot of stuff, like how to develop a value proposition, or like how to write a minimum viable product, or how to secure funding, or how to target markets and figure out your customers, how to do risk assessment, stuff like that. And you will be guided by mentors and experts throughout the length of the competition on how to do each of these things. And here is the timeline for the competition. So the deadline is coming really soon for applications. It's on October 24th, that's this Saturday. But the next deadline, the first deadline for the actual competition, would be way later on December 20th. So throughout the length of the competition, you will have different deadlines for each part of the business plan document. So as we move forward, we will be figuring out how to do each single part of how to tackle each problem and write down each part of the business plan, and then work on it, and then submit those as the deadlines come up. So between October 24th and December 20th, you'll have plenty of time for coming up with your ideas, figuring out your teams, and like getting that first document in. And this the second deadline, third and fourth deadline, all will be parts of the business plan document that you will be finishing as you move along. And the finalists, the final teams that are selected for the pitch competition, will present on February 27th and 28th during the Ascension Conference online. So I'd just like to feature our past team, Kevin and Kirk. They participated in YSpacE 2019. That was the last YSpacE competition held. And these are students from Carleton University. They created a business plan around the technology for space debris removal. And they were already working on this research as graduate students. And they named it Space Debris Removal Services. So after their participation in YSpacE, they renamed to Obruda Space Solutions. They got funded by CSA, and along with Lucas, they are now developing novel space debris removal technologies. Yeah, so to apply to YSpacE, all you need to do is go to seds.ca/YSpacE. You will find a student handbook that will have detailed information about every aspect of the competition and every single part involved with it. There's also a Google form that you can use to apply, that you will need to use to apply. And it also has information about the webinars and our partners and prizes. And there's also an FAQ section. So if you have any questions that come up after this Q&A session, you can refer to the FAQ or shoot us an email.
Awesome. Thanks, Agustia. Are there any questions about YSpacE or any of our other projects. We would love to hear them. I do see one that's actually from our Instagram, and it says, is YSpacE only for Canadian citizens? Or, for example, Canadian citizens apply too? So yeah, there's no, the only requirement is that you are studying at a Canadian post-secondary institution. So your citizenship or residency status doesn't matter. The only requirement is that you are studying at a Canadian post-secondary institution. So what do I mean by that? A college, a university, or even a cégep if you're in Quebec, in Canada. That's the only requirement. From YouTube, we have, I think this is for SBX. What is the maximum output of the radio transmitter? I'm not sure on that specific question. If you want to send us an email at projects@seds.ca, I can get you a follow-up on that. It might be in the handbook, it might not, I'm not entirely sure. And another question, does the faculty advisor have to be a doctor or can they be a tenured professor? Yeah, so just to clarify this, the RGX and SBX competitions, for these we require a faculty advisor support. And so what that means is someone that is looped in with the faculty. So they can be not necessarily a tenured professor, but an assistant professor, a lecturer, but for example, a postdoc or a PhD student wouldn't count as your faculty advisor, just because we like to have someone that has sort of the connections within this institution itself. So yeah, we do require a faculty advisor, and they just need to be within the faculty, so some sort of professor or lecturer. And if you have any specific questions, like a specific situation, we can field those in the email if you're worried. Awesome. Okay, so just to wrap up here, give it a couple more seconds for questions. Okay, so are you ready to apply? Here's what you have to do to apply for most things. You form a team with a cool idea for an experiment or a business idea. For RGX and SBX, you do need a team, but for YSpacE, you can actually apply as an individual. So you don't necessarily have to form a team for YSpacE. Again, for only SBX and RGX, you need to find a faculty advisor. For YSpacE, you don't require a faculty advisor. And 3 is, submit the best proposal or application you can. We've actually heard multiple times, which is quite funny, in all of our projects, that students didn't think they would sort of be accepted or selected for some of our projects because they wrote their proposal in a day or something. And so yeah, it's never too late to apply. All you should do is really look at the review criteria of the proposals. So for SBX and RGX, we have sort of like a rubric. If you sort of follow that rubric and write the best proposal you can, that's all you need to do. Don't worry if you're writing it the day before the deadline, you'll be fine. For YSpacE, again, it's just a Google form, and it sort of asks you about your interests and your idea if you have one. But again, you don't need to apply with an idea for YSpacE, so just fill out the application as best as you can there. One note though, in between sort of all of this is definitely contact us. If you're unsure about something, or if you just want to field ideas off of us, definitely contact us. And there are a couple ways to do that. So on the SBX and RGX websites, there are interest forms that you can fill out that just sort of asks you about the idea that you're interested in. There's a general email that you can find us at projects@seds.ca, or there are project specific emails that you can find on each of these websites. Yeah, so Just a reminder as well about the deadlines. The earliest one coming up in 4 days, so this Saturday, is YSpacE on October 20th. So definitely spread the word on that one. Take a look at the website, and if you're interested, definitely fill it out. CAN-RGX is due November 15th, and CAN-SBX is due November 17th. And a note on this, there's no sort of limitation to how many projects you can apply for. If you like sort of all three of them, sure, apply to all three, but who knows what will happen there. And if you have any further questions, definitely, I have this sort of email here just because this is the most general email. Toss us an email at projects@seds.ca or comment on any of our social media, and we'll definitely get you an answer. Okay. And with that, one last reminder, would like to remind you that this is recorded and posted on our website, seds.ca/projq&a. And so if you want to share it with anyone, please feel free to do so. And with that, I'll thank you for stopping by our live stream.